Hey guys, welcome back. In the previous video, we learned about how to deal with secrets in a project, and today we are going to learn another interesting topic, and that is about annotations. So in this video, we will see like what annotations are, what are some practical use cases where we use them, and then we will go a little bit step ahead, and we will talk about creating our own composite annotations, meta annotations, whatever you want to call them. And maybe in the next video, I can also show you where exactly we use, those annotations in different types of continuous integration situations, right? So I think first and foremost, let's talk about some practical use cases of where do we use annotations. So for example, if you look into our test sandbox class, you can already see that we have used some custom annotations. Like for example, we have some failing test cases. You could have some flaky test cases. Like failing test case could be a situation where you have a bug in your application, and now we don't want to keep running this test in CI because otherwise your CI will keep on failing, right? So you might want to tag it as failing, and then you might want to skip it. Then you might have some flaky test cases which work sometime, does not work other times, and you do not really want to be you don't really want to like make it as a part of continuous integration process until the flakiness is dealt with, right? So that's another use case. Then you might have some test cases which you might want to tag as smoke test cases. So let's say if I tag this as a smoke test case, and these are test cases that you might typically want to run. Let's say every time when you create a pull request. So you, depending on like how many test cases you have, how long they take to run, you might decide to run only few test cases with each PR, or you might decide to run all the test cases. Like if you decide to run all the test cases, it's no problem. Then you don't need to have any smokes, segregation between smoke and everything. But most of the times what happens is that you want to run some test cases as a part of pull request, all your test cases when something is merged, into the main branch. In the case of APIs, let's say if you have test cases for all the APIs in your project, you might want to run very specific test cases for a changed API. So let's imagine you have a bunch of microservices, and one of the microservices got changed, and you want to run only tests for that particular microservice, right? So in that case, maybe you want to tag this as a let's say user service, for example, right? And you might have multiple test cases, but you might only want to run test cases for user service. And then in a cron job, you might want to run all the test cases, right? So there are like different use cases where tagging a test case gives you that power to run different test cases on different movements based on your own use case and needs. So that's one reason why we tag our test cases. So let's go back and tag it back to smoke. Now, if we look into our tag test cases, I have now tagged few test cases here, one flaky, failing, smoke. Other tests are not marked anything, like they're just normal tests. And one of the problems that can happen if we use this approach is maybe somebody else wants to tag a test case as flaky, but accidentally they don't write flaky with a small f, but they write it with a big capital F, and that could fail in CI. Somebody might write as failing, somebody might write failing with a capital F, somebody might write it just as fail, and then you have a problem, right? And tomorrow, if somebody wants to change this tag from failing to fail, and if you have hundreds of test cases, you would have to replace it in all the different places. So a custom annotation comes to our rescue. And if you're using JUnit 5, it makes it super easy to write those custom annotations. So let's go to browser, and this is JUnit documentation. Like typically, if you just search for JUnit 5 or JUnit 5, the home page opens. If you go to user guide, you get all the documentation, table of contents on the left. And if you click on the very first item, like second item, writing test, the very first item is annotations. And if you click on annotations, here it talks about different annotations that JUnit provides, and then it also talks about meta annotations and compose annotations. And here, for example, they have given an example that if you want to tag something as fast, instead of tagging it as fast, you can make your own custom annotation with an interface, @ annotation interface, and then you can only, wherever you use @tag fast, you can actually provide an annotation named as @fast. In fact, they say you can even take it one step further, and instead of having @fast and @test, you could add @test also as a part of that interface, and then you can just have fast test. And this is pretty much similar to what you see here with @repeated test. So let's just go ahead and create an interface for ourselves. So let's go back. Let's first create a package in Power Tester. So let's create a new package. This should be inside Power Tester. Dot. Let's call it Annotations. And now we have a package called Annotations. Right? Let's create a new Java class. And the type is not of interface, not of enum, but of an annotation, right? And the first interface that you want to create is, let's say, for a smoke test, right? So let's just call it smoke. Let's just call it smoke for now, right? And now if we go back and if I open let's open Control 2, no, Windows 2, Windows 1. Now, if you look into this particular example, what it says is you have to specify certain items here, like what is the target that you want to target, what is the retention policy, right? In this particular case, since we want to deal with methods, the element type is going to be method. The retention policy should be runtime, and let's just copy the whole thing from here to here. This is the first example that they have provided, right? So let's copy the whole thing, Control C, and if I go to Windows 1, let's just add those annotations here, right? And instead of fast, we are going to say smoke. And now we already have got an interface called smoke that we can replace anywhere we're using @tag smoke. So if I go back to test sandbox, instead of saying it as @tag smoke, I could actually say it as and smoke, right? And then I can basically remove this. And this is exactly the same thing as using @tag smoke, right? Now, another thing that they gave in the same example is, if you remember, not only we can like have this annotation with tag, but instead of having like saying @smoke, @test, similar to repeated test, we can actually create our own annotation called @smoke test. So let's copy this, and if we go back to smoke, we can actually add it here. Control V, and we can rename this as a smoke test now, right? And the cool thing with this is now instead of saying @test and @smoke test, we could remove this annotation. We can remove this, and you simply just have one annotation, which is @smoke test, right? Let's just go ahead and let's look into this. Are we missing anything? No. It's the same thing. Element type is method, retention type is runtime, tag fast, test, go. And now this is the way you can use it. Let's just go ahead and create custom annotations for these two type of annotations as well. So @tag failing and @tag flaky. So what we can do is we can just make a copy of it, copy class, and instead of saying it as smoke test, we can call it as failing test, and we just need to change it to failing. And in fact, most of the time when the test is failing, we also want to disable it, right? But for now, I'll leave it like this. But when the use case comes, we can always add that @disable tag here, and then we can only mark it as a failing test. And then let's also add another refactor copy class, and let's call it as flaky test. and let's call it as flaky. So if we go back, we can change our @tag failing @test to just @failing test, right? And we can remove both of these. And you can see, you can still run the test because behind the scene, it still uses all those annotations. So yeah, the test is failing. Let's also change the flaky test @flaky test. Oops, Control Z @flaky test, and let's remove this, right? And now our tests are much more clean. Like rather having duplicate annotations, rather having annotations, where we are putting string as text, we have just made our own custom annotations, which by the way will work very fine in your CI as well. So in CI, like in this test CI, we are skipping our flaky and failing test, right? This will still work. So this behind the scene, it is still going to use this tag. Behind the scene, it is still going to use this tag. So nothing needs to be changed anywhere. And this works perfectly fine in CI as well. So with this, I think we saw, how you can mark different test cases. And in the next video, I can show on what cases, we would like to run smoke test cases, in what cases we would like to run all the test cases, and maybe create some reusable GitHub action workflows to demonstrate those use cases. And maybe even before showing that, what I can do is, like, these three are tests because we have some assert statements. This is not a test, and this is not a test because here we have all this log info statements, but there is no really assert statements. So what I can do is I can show you like how to write how to convert this into a soft assert, because like essentially we want to test everything in configuration, and even if one thing fails, we still want to continue with our test. So maybe I'll make a very quick video to show how you can convert this test where you want to assert multiple things into a soft assert test case, and then I could show you in the next video on how to use these different kind of tests in different kind of CI situations, right? So I hope you learned something useful in this video. Well, if you like this video, well, press the like button. If you like in general what I'm sharing, you can subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to see you guys in the next video. Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye.